What is up, everybody? It is, what day is it? It is Wednesday, October 4th. It's Nudie Magazine Day. Just kidding. It is not. Maybe it is. I don't know.
That is what day. That is what day Nudie Magazine Day was.
It was October. I know. Dude, my wife, Jen Polvogt, is one of the biggest, just like Adam Sandler fans you'll find, but specifically Billy Madison. She knows every word to that movie. She could sit on this stream. We could do an hour, however long the movie is, hour and 56 minutes of her just reciting line for line the entire freaking movie. It's insane. But we are here, guys. It is October 4th. We are now 4 full weeks into the NFL season. We're trucking towards week 5, Matt, and we've got a lot to talk about. This has been an interesting and eventful first 4 weeks of the season. The first thing we want to touch on here, we're just going to get out of the gate and get into it. Round 1 picks, where are they now? Now, initially, this was supposed to be something else. I misread the show sheet, but as it turns out, this is a really good topic for us to talk about. So we're going to go ahead and hit it. All of the fantasy-relevant round 1 picks of the NFL draft. I'm going to list them all in order of their draft order here. We've got Bryce Young, who went first, CJ Stroud second, Anthony Richardson 4th, Bijan Robinson 8th, Jahmyr Gibbs 12th, Jackson Smith and Jigba 20th, Quentin Johnson 21st, Zay Flowers 22nd, Jordan Addison 23rd, and Dalton Kincaid went 25th. So that's where we're at here. These are the guys. These were the first round studs that we saw in the NFL draft, and we had expectations of each player. And what they've actually done with that, it's kind of varied. So we'll start with the first overall pick, Bryce Young in Carolina. Matt, what are your thoughts on what Bryce Young has done through 4 games this season?
I'm not patient enough to wait on Bryce Young. I wasn't a Bryce Young guy to begin with. I was much more a Stroud guy, which worked out really well because you could always trade back from probably Bryce Young going at 103 to Stroud going as late as 105, 106.
Right.
I'm happy that I did those. I did end up selling a Stroud because when you end up collecting all those, it's nice to just kind of even it out. But I'm still shopping out my one and only Bryce Young to hope that people have more patience than I do, trying to package him away. I don't love what I've seen, and I really don't love what I've seen from the franchise and how they're going to surround him. CJ Stroud's worked out really well. Anthony Richardson's worked out really well.
Right.
Bryce Young, what a way to use your first-round pick and your next year's first-round pick and lose DJ Moore all to get Bryce Young, right, North Carolina?
Well, it's interesting because we've already got people calling for Frank Reich's job because of how poorly this offense just in general has performed. They're calling back to when he was in Indianapolis and why he got fired there because there was just nothing to that offense. It was boring. Like, you've got 2 guys running the same route. Like, what are you doing? Right? Like, it just doesn't make sense. And Bryce Young might be talented. I was lower on him than most people were coming into the season. I don't like the situation in Carolina. I think it's a franchise. It's kind of a mess. Like, if we're being honest, from the top down, like David Tepper's nuts. Their GM ownership is kind of crazy, and that they don't make smart decisions. I mean,
right? You got to admire.
And then you're going to bring in a quarterback who needs an offense that Bryce Young needs something dynamic. Frank Reich's not a dynamic coach. He doesn't run a dynamic offense. He runs the late 1980s, early 1990s passing offenses that the Bills ran that he played in. So, of course, Bryce Young isn't going to succeed. I don't know that he would have succeeded anyway. I mean, dude, his 10, 14, and 6 fantasy points out of the number 1 overall pick. But the thing is, I think we're looking at him differently if CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson aren't doing what they're doing. So let's move on to CJ Stroud here, who is the number 2 pick in the draft. Stroud has been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. After his first week against Baltimore, he only had 9.6 fantasy points. But then week 2 in Indy, he has 23, 24 at Jacksonville, and then 25 against Pittsburgh at home. And he's getting it done in the air. And he's been efficient enough.
And he can scramble. He just looks good. And he's pulling together an offense that everybody thought was going to be getting, fighting for the first overall pick next year. And they're not going to be anywhere close to that because CJ Stroud is working out. He got his toy in Tank Dell. He's unlocked Nico Collins.
Is that
It's hard to laugh at the Texans right now.
you can't. DeMeco
You really
Ryan has
can't.
done a phenomenal job. Just overall impressed with what the Texans have done. Tank Dell, man. We've talked about him, and I've been like, get Tank Dell. I have a lot of Tank Dell. He's been great. And it's not a surprise that they kind of have to throw the ball a lot because Dameon Pierce has been inefficient. Shocker, right? So is Devin Singletary. This is shocking to all of us. I think, who did you compare? You compared Dameon Pierce to Devin Singletary towards the end of the offseason. We did a show, and there was a short about it. I'll have to dig that up here and look, but you're dead on that there's nothing to be excited about in the run game of this offense, but it's made Stroud shine. So
Sure.
Another quarterback, the third quarterback taken in the draft with the 4th overall pick by the Indianapolis Colts. We all know him as Anthony Richardson, AR-15, whatever you want to call him. The kid is he's been phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. If you went back and redrafted this and you're Carolina, do you take Anthony Richardson first?
Of course you do. Of course, you have to. Just seeing what he's capable of, just seeing how much he can pop the top off the defenses by keeping them all very, very honest, close to the line because he can run it. He can kind of do whatever he wants deep. He's, they've been running these 4-seam patterns and letting Josh Downs run around underneath, and it's working. It's working for Richardson. It's working for the Colts. Yeah, I think that Carolina probably very much regrets moving up.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. I mean, 23.9 fantasy points in his first ever NFL game. Goes 24-37, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, but more impressively, 10 carries for 40 yards and a touchdown. So he scores twice in his rookie game. Very first time out on an NFL field against NFL competition.
The maiden voyage, if you will.
The maiden voyage, if you will. But man, was he absolutely just incredibly impressive. This is a good chance here. I want to get to the chat real quick. We've got Albert Merriquin popping in to say hello. Albert, thank you so much for tuning in. We've got Lynn Dorfins in the chat. And the Atlanta offense is so cold. Want to touch the Heineke. I love that. That is a fantastic Billy Madison reference. And I've said it. I don't know how many times I said it on this show. Heineke will be the starter there by week 8. It's going to be sooner because, dude, Desmond Ridder has just been absolutely atrocious. We've got Jamie tuning in the chat saying, Nate and Matt, what's up, guys? Jamie, thank you. Our favorite fantasy cat, Mr. Scampers in the chat saying, howdy, boys. And we've got the man from down under who I have an exciting announcement with coming later in the week. Hopefully, Mr. Brad Bolt saying, hey, Nate and Matt. Great. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. All right.
I hate when you do that, Nate. Why do we have to wait for this exciting news?
Because, dude, I like to tease things. It's fun.
Well, I'm titillated.
Yeah. All right. So now let's go to this is where things get more exciting in this draft, in my opinion, because now 8th overall, Bijan Robinson goes to the Falcons, and there were real concerns that Tyler Algier was going to eat into his workload. And the first couple of weeks is like, Tyler Algier's going to eat into his workload. But it also hasn't mattered. 20 fantasy points, 21 fantasy points, and even 10 week 3 against Detroit, which was a down week for him. Has 18.7 fantasy points against Jacksonville last week. But he's also doing it in the air.
It's Bijan. What can you say? You got him.
Right.
Congratulations. You're not
Right.
regretting it.
He's responsible for 3 incomplete passes this season.
Wait, what? 30? Wait, say that again?
3. 22 targets. He's caught 19 of his 22 targets. 3 incomplete passes to Bijan.
Okay, gotcha.
I mean, I probably could have worded that differently. He's got 134 yards in the air. He's scoring points.
Great.
He's only got one touchdown. So I think we can we can end this here pretty quickly and just say, dude, look, Bijan Robinson is exactly who we thought Bijan Robinson was going to be. He's an elite talent. This might be a generational running back that we're seeing unfold. He makes these stupid plays that your mind almost can't comprehend. So
I did. So yeah, I don't think that anybody that took him is regretting it. I've still seen some very high prices for him. I think I offered Trevor Lawrence for Bijan and JSN and I got turned down, and the guy was like, "You should see what it took for somebody to get Bijan off me." He's like, "It's a very fair trade, but I'm just not taking it." And I don't see why he would be the person to test around about unless you've got the capital.
Yeah,
and
but
I don't think he's lost any capital since he was 3 firsts 5 weeks ago. He's still going to be 3 firsts, and I can't acquire at that price.
Running backs make me too nervous.
For sure,
like an NFL GM.
Would you sell him?
I worry about their long. Oh,
would you sell him for 2?
That.
Would you sell him for like 2 firsts? Oh, really?
I'd try 2 firsts and a high end asset. It'd have to be a high end asset, a wide receiver.
So 3 firsts.
3 firsts. Give me 3 firsts. If you give me 3 firsts, then fine. I'll absolutely do it. The next one we're going to talk about here, and this isn't so rosy, man. It's Jahmyr Gibbs going to the Detroit Lions with the 12th pick. I think that this is exactly what all the people who bought into DeAndre Swift feared, that they were just replacing DeAndre Swift's role with Jahmyr Gibbs, who was going to do the exact same thing. And it's proven true because David Montgomery has been a touchdown hound, right?
Yep.
5 touchdowns, 6 touchdowns through the first 4 weeks of the season.
That's almost like a Jamal Williams Detroit Lions pace. That's crazy. It's inconceivably
actually
high.
I believe I tweeted about it after the game. Think he's on pace for 26 touchdowns this season. So blowing Jamal Williams out of the water. Right. Obviously not a sustainable pace, but we're not here to talk about David Montgomery quite yet. We do have a question about him in the chat that we'll get to here in a minute. Jahmyr Gibbs, 8 fantasy points, 12, 9, and 9. He saw week 2 against Seattle, 9 targets, 7 catches, 39 yards. It's great. He doesn't have a touchdown. He's just simply not seeing the usage in the running game. And the week 2 against Seattle kind of concerns me, where his efficiency went way down against a better run defense than they have faced outside of that, but still not a great run defense. 2.43 yards per carry. So are you still feeling good about taking Jahmyr Gibbs in the first round of rookie drafts, Matt?
I am. Okay. I don't think that there's anywhere that I picked him over Stroud, but is it okay to say I'm still okay with Gibbs over Young?
Yeah.
I'm also not worried about JSN. I don't know how many people took JSN over either of those number 2 and 3 quarterbacks, Young and Stroud, but
sure.
I'm not scared about JSN either. I'm not scared about Gibbs. We'll
get to JSN in a minute, but
okay.
Here's why I'm worried about Gibbs, because we're seeing this offense play out exactly like it played out last year. DeAndre Swift didn't get anything. He got nothing. Now he goes to Philly where they're like, okay, you want volume? We'll give you volume. Let's see what you can do. And he has played really well with the volume. He's got Gainwell to back him up, but DeAndre Swift is almost a different running back this season than he was the previous 3 seasons in Detroit. And that worries me that we're not going to see Jahmyr Gibbs do anything until they move on from him in 3 seasons.
That's
fair. I can't wait 3 years for that first round pick to pay off. So Jahmyr Gibbs is a guy I'm kind of looking to sell right now, quite honestly.
Ooh, what's your sell price? Because I'll be on the other side of that. We can negotiate right now. Let's pretend you have Jahmyr Gibbs. Let's do it first on a contender and then second on a rebuilder, and let's see what we can do.
Okay. Well, if you were a contender,
would you take? Let's say you're a contender, right? And I have your first because that's how I play the game. So of course I have your first already. Would you take your own first back and Amari Cooper? If you thought you were possibly in like bye week range, would you give me Gibbs for Amari Cooper and your own first back?
No.
What would it take?
I want a first.
Plus what?
And I probably want something in the neighborhood of
Quentin Johnston?
No, God. No. Trying to think of someone somewhere in like that wide receiver 2 range. I mean,
but not Amari Cooper, right?
Not Amari Cooper. I don't like Amari Cooper. I'm pretty much out on Brown's assets right now.
Okay, that's completely fair. That's completely fair.
So yeah, so a first and something in that wide receiver 2 range or RB2 range I'd take too. I mean, I'd probably be happy with like Ramondre because he's kind of sitting as like an RB2 right now. I think his value's kind of tanking a little bit. Something in that neighborhood is probably something I'd take for him.
A first and Ramondre for Gibbs is very interesting. So I had a chance this last summer to trade my 105 that would have been Gibbs, and we both knew that it was going to be Gibbs. And I could have gotten their Derrick Henry 23 second. Oh, no, 23 second and then 24 first and second. If I gave them Gibbs, I'd get Henry 2 seconds and their 24 second. And in retrospect, those are the kind of deals that I like to make because I like just pushing a mid first into a future first and second, and also Derrick Henry and a second. So in retrospect, you should have taken that deal all day long, especially if you're panicking right now in Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm not so much panicking right now in Jahmyr Gibbs because rookies do take some time to heat up. That's why I'm not scared for him, and that's why I'm not scared for JSN.
Well, here's the thing is that I didn't like the Jahmyr Gibbs situation from the beginning, so I don't have like hardly any shares of him.
You know what scared me about
away.
Gibbs? You know what scared me about Gibbs? He did not show passion for pass blocking anytime in college, and he went to replace DeAndre Swift to a coach that wants you to rip the other team's kneecaps apart and just shred them from the ground up. And I feel like a Jerick McKinnon style 31 bench reps type of pass blocker is probably more of what Dan Campbell is looking for than Jahmyr Gibbs, who we should have always worried about his pass pro. He can still be a weapon that's very, very good for the team and still make you frustrated. The talent's always going to be there. I understand what you're saying about comparing him to DeAndre Swift. And if you want to compare it to DeAndre Swift and you want to get out, I completely understand. I'm willing to talk on either side of that deal.
I just think the role's too similar at this point. Like, we're looking at it, and he's being plugged into that DeAndre Swift role, which is exactly what I was afraid of and exactly what I was told wasn't going to happen by all the people who were just grabbing shares of Jahmyr Gibbs. And that's fine. And I could be completely wrong. But I'm looking at what's happening there now. Like, I wasn't wrong because that's exactly what's happening. We're seeing, I think he's going to have boom weeks, right? It's going to happen. He's going to have boom weeks. But at his current price, I'm not willing to pay for some boom weeks. Just like I wasn't willing to pay for the boom weeks from DeAndre Swift.
So I'll tell you this.
Last season, as soon as he had a couple of good games and his price went up, I bailed on DeAndre Swift.
Can I tell you this? I've never sold a DeAndre Swift in Dynasty. I've only bought. I didn't start with any rookie DeAndre Swifts, not a single one. And now I think I'm at like 25 or 30% DeAndre Swift because the talent's always going to be there and the situation was terrible and you just end up with more and more and more and more. So you start at 0%, you end up at 25%. And I started with probably 25% of Gibbs, and that stinks. But I'm not going to bail on him the way that I imagine people did on Swift.
But here's my issue with that. I got out on Swift when he was on a high, so I got good return for it. I'd have to go back and look at the trades. I don't remember exactly what I got, but I was really, and I still am pleased with my return. There's no guarantee when you know that a player is stuck in a bad situation. There's no guarantee that Detroit trades DeAndre Swift. What if they just bring in David Montgomery, they keep DeAndre Swift, they use the 12th pick on defense or offensive line or something else, and then DeAndre Swift is just still stuck. And then they pick up his 5th-year option, and he's still just stuck. And now I'm sitting here, and I could have gotten a return. No, I'm saying this about DeAndre Swift before he got traded.
Gotcha.
There's no guarantee he gets traded. So what if they pick up his 5th-year option after this season? He's still in Detroit. They pick up his 5th year, and now all of a sudden I'm sitting here with DeAndre Swift in my hand. I'm like, this is useless.
So here's the thing. The other thing about DeAndre Swift in the Lions is that he spent so much time injured and not starting that when he did start, you just use him because 17 points is so easily within his outcomes. It's kind of his, we'll say median outcome or average, either one, because he might end up with 5 points. He might end up with 30 points, but 17 points is what I expect to get, like live or die with Swift on that team. And if that's where we get with Gibbs, then yeah, you're right. You do kind of know what you signed up for as far as a Swift replacement.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I'm out on Jahmyr Gibbs, a novel by Nate Polvogt. And we've taken way too much time on probably like the 8th best player that went out in the first round on the offensive side.
Very debatable. Very debatable.
This is all very debatable. Very debatable. I want to get to the chat here before we move on. Just real quick, we've got some questions here that one pertains to what we're talking about here. We've got Ray Gamer. Ray, thanks so much for tuning in. How do you feel about Montgomery and Christian Watson for Waddle, Cooper, and Sanders?
Is it Amari Cooper?
I'm assuming it's Amari Cooper.
Okay.
It's not DB Cooper. That's for sure.
The Waddle side is worth the other two. Waddle, if you can sell Montgomery and Christian Watson for Waddle, you should just do that.
Yeah. No, this is a good trade. I do.
The other two pieces are free.
Okay. He also says, if not, do you like this trade other than getting Sanders back? What running back would you target when trading away David Montgomery and trying to get a good wide receiver at the same time? I think we kind of answered that question already. We like
just
whatever
you can.
So go for it. Do whatever you can.
If you don't like Sanders, get a second and third instead. I think somebody would rather keep Sanders than a second and third. And if you don't feel that way, then take the second and third, keep it fluid. Yes. Then it'll be a 2-for-2 trade. And that's nice also because you can keep your roster flowing, turn the back end parts off the waiver wire, and have cash in your pocket. But Waddle wins the other side no matter what. So yeah, go for it, man. Good for you. I didn't know that you had that side of that trade. Take it.
All right. So Lindorphins wants to know if we have any Keaton Mitchell takes. Would you drop Cam Akers for his upside, half PPR if it matters? No. No.
No, you've got a speculative, hopeful person who can take reps, but he might be Zach Evans. He might be Sean Tucker.
He probably is Zach Evans. He probably is both of those.
And then you've got Cam Akers, who in his first game with that new team, I think had about a third of the plays, third of the snap share, about a third of the.
Yeah. And that's only going to grow.
Exactly. If they're just easing Cam Akers in, that's the clear answer. You got to make decisions like that sometimes. It is what it is.
Like we talked about last week, Cam Akers, the decision to draft Cam Akers, Kevin O'Connell, the head coach of the Vikings, was part of that decision to bring him in. He was the offensive coordinator for the Rams at the time. So O'Connell clearly likes Cam Akers. They clearly don't like Alexander Madison. But again, at the end of the day, who had more of the 9 carries that are available in this offense right now?
Right.
So, really at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. And Mr. Scampers makes a really good point here when relating back to the David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs situation. The Detroit Lions gave Monty $20 million. So it's not like they're in any hurry to just hand everything over to the rookie. And I just simply don't think that that's how this Dan Campbell offense really operates.
And Monty's got a 3-year contract. So if you feel like getting frisky, go send a second or third for David Montgomery. If they're rebuilding, they might take it. Or they could hold out for more. And if they're like, no, it's David Montgomery, I know I'm rebuilding, but I can get more for him, then be like, okay, well, I'm going to go send 2 seconds for Aaron Jones and you won't get this deal at all. And they might be like, give me your second and third,
Sure. Right. Yeah. Right. No,
I like 100%. Him. You know what he is? It's funny because it's that region of the country. It's the Lions. He's the Jared Goff. David Montgomery is the Jared Goff of running backs. Is that fair? In Superflex Dynasty, where you're like, no, I don't want that. Then you're like, well, that guy's kind of good. And he's probably going to be there for 2-3 more years. So,
it's like that kid for the girls, right? Like,
right.
Maybe, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's move on here to someone we've already mentioned, Jackson Smith and Jigba, the 20th overall pick. He started an almost fantasy football-like run on wide receivers in the actual NFL draft, which was, if you were watching the draft, that was a lot of fun.
21, 22, 23 for him, Quentin, and then Zay Flowers, right? Or no,
JSN, Quentin Johnson, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, picks 20 through 23. So 20, perfect. 21, 22, 23. So we're going to
scared off of him?
Absolutely not.
I'm not either. If you can go buy him every single day that he drops in value is a great day to go get him.
100%. People who are worried about him, I don't really understand it. This isn't the Jahmyr Gibbs situation where it's like, well, no, but he's just DeAndre Swift 2.0, where I'm like, I don't want that. And you know what? I'm actively trying to acquire DeAndre Swift right now, and I'm okay with that because I'm glad about what I got back for him in the first place when I moved him last season. I have a fair amount of JSN, and I'm not trading him away because I know what he can do and what he will do and what he was brought in to do in this offense. And I drafted him in rookie drafts knowing I wasn't going to get that production likely consistently in year one because DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are still there. Right? My expectations were that JSN was probably going to sit on my taxi. It was like, unless something weird, like if Tyler Lockett gets hurt, then maybe I elevate him. And I don't know. We're going to have to see what he does. He hasn't been 4, 8, 2, and 3 fantasy points. I think I'm okay having him sit on my taxi right now.
If you put JSN in your taxi, that is just a baller move. You're just doing that to flex on your league mates. And it's working because you wouldn't be tempted to put him in. Yeah.
I'm in 21 Dynasty leagues. So no, dude. Well, that's something we'll get to. I'm excited to have an entire off season with you hosting this show. Because some of the off season strategy that we can start to get into. And one of the things that I do in the off season, I like to hoard players on my taxi. I'm a taxi hoarder, and I will build out other parts of my team to make sure that I don't need to have the guys that I draft in my rookie draft. Every single player I take in my rookie draft, I have a taxi spot for before I get to the draft. Great. And I put every single one of them on taxi.
Wow.
Always. I don't want to need my rookies. And that's my dynasty. That's the dynasty strategy that has paid off the most for me because so last week, I don't want to flex here too much.
Do it.
I'm in 28 total leagues. All right. I have yet to win in less than 18 of my total 28 leagues in any 1 week this season.
Wow. I think if you can hit over 60 consistently, you're doing very, very well. And you sound like you're at almost 70.
Yeah, so far. I have some redraft teams. I have some redraft charity leagues that aren't doing great. I have a couple dynasty leagues where it's like there's a whole lot of activity, so it's hard to trade and make your team better because nobody's really doing anything because they all joined it during the pandemic and we're all hanging on for the nostalgia, but just nobody does anything. And in those leagues, I'm losing. But in the ones I'm active in, man, like, yeah, I mean, I've got some really stacked taxis, and I'm happy with it. I just pulled Zay Flowers off of a taxi in the league in week 4 because I had no choice. And you know how big I am on Zay Flowers. I didn't need to use the roster spot on him at the time.
Fair enough.
There was no need.
Fair enough.
So, yeah. So guys like JSN, that's what I did because I knew this wasn't going to be year one. Like, just plain and simple, this wasn't going to be a boom year for him, and that's okay. He's currently the wide receiver 90.
Sounds like I'm not getting him from you. So I did. No, in the last couple of weeks, I did just buy a JSN. I sold Trevor Lawrence in a 4-point passing touchdown dynasty. Superflex. I sold Trevor Lawrence for 2 firsts. One's going to be non-playoff. One's going to be maybe playoff. One's going to be playoff, sure. One's going to be non-playoff, and one's going to be JSN. And in a 4-point passing touchdown league, I'm happy sending Trevor Lawrence and just taking the draft capital, especially if I'm starting 3 wide receivers, 3 flexes. Just give me the 3 firsts, basically, because JSN's still worth more than a first.
Oh, no, 100%. I completely agree. And I still wouldn't give him up for any of that. I'm looking at this situation like, I mean, his ceiling's higher than DK or Tyler Lockett, especially knowing that we've got 1 or 2 years of Geno. I think they probably go quarterback next year in the draft.
His ceiling is still Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown. His ceiling is still very high. 100%, dude. I completely agree. Okay, so before we move on to the next wide receiver, I'm not scared either. You shouldn't be scared. Go out and get Jackson Smith and Jigba from the people who are scared because you will thank us next season. It'll be huge. Jamie Parag in the chat has another question here. Would you trade away Stephon Diggs in a 2024 mid-third for Michael Pittman in a 2024 mid to late first?
I probably would do this.
It's fair. It just depends on how you look.
Dynasty
It depends on how you look at Pittman, because if you're rebuilding and you can get 2 firsts for Diggs, you probably just should. It's tough because he just got 36 points. It's hard to give him away. But at this point in his career, he's looking at 30 years old. If you can get 2 firsts, you kind of got to get out. I've had an open trade in one of my leagues for, let's see. Sorry to do this. Take all this time. But I've got an open trade to send away on a team that needs to rebuild, but is an age cliff, probably pretender. I'm looking to send away Stephon Diggs, Michael Thomas, Juju, and Brandon Cooks for JSN and a first, second, third. And if I can get that, I'm very happy with JSN and a first for Diggs and a second and a third for Michael Thomas, Juju, and Brandon Cooks. Probably makes both sides happy, and I'm perfectly happy with making both sides happy in a trade like that, a refresher, you know?
Sure. So Brad Bolt in the chat says, I would not do this trade. Pittman is a wide receiver 1 to me, whereas Diggs is.
And that's where it lies. That's where it lays, is where do you find that second piece? Because 2 firsts is fine.
Right.
If you're not going to spend a first on Pittman, because I would not, then I wouldn't do this trade. I would definitely spend a first plus on Ayuk. So, like, if you can do Diggs and a second for Ayuk and a first, I'm doing that. That's an easy thing for me to say.
Yeah, Brandon Ayuk right now is a buy for me. Brock Purdy loves him. He's looked electric in that offense. I want all of the Brandon
always has.
Ayuk.
Yeah.
And I have all of the Brandon Ayuk. So, like, yeah, just get all the Brandon Ayuk, guys. Get him. He's young. Like, this is only his 3rd season in the league. So
I think he's 24 years old. He was a first round pick. So
yeah.
he might get that first round. What do they call it?
Draft capital.
He might get the 10-year, the 5th-year option if they decide.
Yeah. He does. Yeah.
So he's He's in his 4th year. They might pick him up another year. Like Brandon, he's super legit. We've been pounding the table for him since offseason. He's a dynasty wide receiver 1, and now not only that, he is a redraft wide receiver 1 who happens to be 24 years old. If you bought Ayuk anytime in the last 3 years, you're probably very happy at the price you got him. Good job, buddy.
This guy. All right, so now we have talked about JSN. Quentin Johnson, the number 21 overall pick, goes to the San Diego, Los Angeles Chargers. I'm old.
Man, I don't want to talk about him. I don't care.
I'm
out.
I mean, he's fine. I really liked him coming into the draft. Okay. I liked the raw talent. I liked him. I liked what TCU did with him. But when Josh Palmer is getting reps in game over you, when you were the 21st pick in the NFL draft, that's a problem for me.
I'll tell you what, I'm in 20 leagues. If I had any Quentin Johnston, I would be adding to him for Puka. Luckily, I don't have any Quentin Johnston, but
I don't either. I didn't like where he was going. And I had concerns about him being behind Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, which is different for me than JSN being behind the 2 he was behind. Because something about this Chargers team doesn't feel complete to me. There's something about the coaching and the way that the team's constructed. It feels haphazard to me, both on offense and defense. When you watch them play, they don't look full. They just don't look like a full team that's communicating with each other. I think Brandon Staley's got to go.
Who was Kellen Moore? So Kellen Moore is their offensive coordinator, right? And he was the offensive coordinator for Dallas last year.
Right.
He did really well for Dak last year, and he did really well for the offense last year in fantasy and in real life. Now he's there with the Chargers, and he's doing the same thing. Can you name for me Kellen Moore's wide receiver 2 last year?
I cannot.
Good. Well, then don't worry so much about Quentin Johnson and Josh Palmer, because we might be looking at the same type of thing.
Oh, we already are. Keenan Allen's numbers have been ridiculous. And Justin Herbert has played well. But with Quentin Johnson, there might be a time when he gets there, but like, to be honest, I'm okay with being out on him. Like, I'm totally
big time Jameson Williams rookie vibes.
Yep, big time. So now we've got the 22nd overall pick, guys. We said this was a wide receiver run here in this first round. Zay Flowers going to the Ravens. this Ravens offense hasn't exactly been what we were thinking it was going to be. It hasn't been the just run and gun, air it out. But Zay Flowers has looked at times, he's looked phenomenal all of the times. He's got 2 games with 10 targets, 9 catches and 8 catches in those. Still doesn't have a touchdown. This offense looks like it's just taking a second to get rolling in Baltimore. Are you worried about Zay Flowers? Because I know I talked you into him hardcore. Are you gonna quit?
No, of course not.
Over it?
Of course not. No, I'm not going to quit the show over it, and I'm not going to quit Zay Flowers either. He's a dog, and he's showed us what he can do, and we really wanted them to be a much pass happier offense with Greg Roman gone, and we haven't gotten it. But you got to I guess you don't have to like somebody behind Mark Andrews, but you should. And if you don't like him, then you should be sending a second for Bateman, because you definitely get a second for Bateman. And I'm not scared of Zay Flowers. So take your pick of that offense. If anything changes, they're going to be very, very plus money. And if nothing changes, they're still going to be good values if you want them, or if you want to hold on to Zay Flowers. I am.
Oh, I'm holding on to Zay Flowers. I'm not worried. So with Quentin Johnson, who we just talked about, here are his snap percentage through the first 4 games this season. 27% in week 1, 15% in week 2, 24% in week 3. And with Mike Williams gone, he only inched up to 51% in week 4 against Vegas. Now, on the flip side, here's Zay Flowers. Week 1 against Houston, 84% snap share. Led the team in targets.
Whoa.
Week 2, 77% snap share, 5 targets. Week 3 against Indy, 93% snap share, 10 targets. Last week against Cleveland, in a game where Cleveland was just simply never in it, he had a 98% snap share. Only 4 targets, but they didn't really have to throw that much against Cleveland.
Wow. You know what? This makes me like him just as much as I like Tank Dell.
Exactly. And that's the thing. And as a dynasty manager, if you're starting to panic on a player, go and look at a few things. Go look at their route percentage, go look at their snap share, and go look at the number of routes run, and look at their route participation. Those things will tell you if you should panic on a wide receiver or not. And I guarantee you, if you go look at Quentin Johnson's statistics right now and you pull all of those, you're going to panic. But you're not going to with Zay Flowers. You're not going to with JSN.
So let me ask you this. Tank Dell certainly crept up. You may not be able to get him for a second. Wherever I've tried, I haven't been able to, and I shouldn't be trying because I'm already at 35%. I shouldn't be doing that. But it's interesting here and there. Would you rather Zay Flowers or Tank at another second reroll? That's tough, right?
It is tough. I think I'm going to stick with Flowers.
That's fair. It's tough, man. Dude, it's tough.
I might change my mind in 5 minutes.
For sure.
It's hard to say, really. It's hard to say. All right. So now after Zay Flowers, we thought, no, they can't possibly. Nobody's going to take another wide receiver. That would be crazy. And then the Minnesota Vikings, who you wouldn't think would take a first-round wide receiver in the NFL draft, took Jordan Addison at number 23. I mean, I didn't expect this is another player where it's like I drafted Jordan Addison.
What do we think? What do we think? Kevin O'Connell, who's like the king of 3 wide receiver sets, is going to want a second wide receiver? To pair with J. Jeff and Hawkinson? That's crazy. There's no way that could happen. Well, they did, and it worked out. I think they're very happy with him. I think that his efficiency and production far outshines anybody else on that offense. I think KJ Osborne probably should stop getting used if you look at his efficiency. And I think that Kevin O'Connell is going to be very quick to figure that out. And Addison is the same type of guy as Zay Flowers, where you're not going to buy him for a first. You might be able to buy him for a first and second, and you should, depending on where that is. If it's a back half first, it's a fun landscape, man. The whole wide receiver rookie class has looked very usable this year, and
it really has. With Addison, I mean, I figured he was probably going to get a lot of usage. I wasn't really super worried behind Justin Jefferson just because what O'Connell does and because of the pure pass play percentage that Minnesota has shown is insanity.
What's Kirk Cousins? What's his expected overall season pass rate right now? What's the? I bet he's looking at probably 700 targets.
Though.
Yeah,
probably somewhere around there. It's insane. So in an offense that isn't going to throw the ball, yeah, of course, or isn't going to run the ball, of course, Addison's going to see it. He's going to see plenty. I think they're easing him in a little, but not that much. I mean, KJ Osborne's on the field more. He hasn't had last week was his first week with a sub 90% snap share. Addison, on the other hand, is 56, 69, 71, 58. And last week he only saw one target, but I'm not panicked at all.
Do you see this as an opportunity to go buy him?
I kind of do.
I kind of do too.
Yeah. I mean, go buy Jordan Addison. The dip isn't going to be huge, but it's going to be enough. Even 10 cents off, it's nice every once in a while, right?
Yep,
take
you're
the
right.
discount when you can get it.
Well, say it as 10% off, and anytime you can get 10% off, if you can arbitrage two players between, so after week 1, I bought Puka from a tanking team for a late second, and we kind of haggled over whether it should be an early second or a late second that I sent for Puka, but he was fine with it. Then he had a great second week, and I just gained one, which gives me a little bit more leeway to go sell one somewhere else. And I sold Puka and some, Latavius Murray and Taysom Hill for a first and Greg Dulcich. So if you can buy a player for a second and then sell him the next week for a first, you kind of have to do it no matter what. I'm not really big on player takes. I'm just good at market arbitrage and how to maintain a healthy economy and a very healthy portfolio all around.
Sure. Okay, so Jordan Addison. We like Jordan Addison, guys. Go buy that little minuscule 10% dip. The last offensive fantasy relevant player drafted in the first round. This went a lot longer than we expected, Matt. So I think we're going to take the rest of this show sheet, and we're going to do it next week because it's going to be just as relevant next week.
Second breakfast? I think we should do a second breakfast between this week and next week because we still have a lot to talk about because the dynasty landscape is changing, and we do need to talk about how I think quarterbacks are going to drop drastically in value the way that running backs did over the last 2 years. I think there's a chance that quarterbacks are going to do the same thing, and I would like to talk about it, and it does deserve its own show, and I don't want to wait on it, Nate.
All
so
right,
maybe we'll do it before this weekend. Maybe. Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see if we have time. All right.
Yeah.
You know who doesn't drop in value, though, Matt?
Who's that?
Talented tight ends. They don't lose value if they're producing. Dalton Kincaid, 25th overall pick. It's kind of a shocker, honestly. I don't think a lot of us saw this. Who thought that the receiver-rich Buffalo Bills were going to take Dalton Kincaid when they already had Dalton Knox, who did fine in the red zone, but they did. They went out and they got Kincaid. He hasn't quite been the receiving boom that we thought we were going to see from him. 80% snap share week 1. Since then, he hasn't seen a snap share above 60. Maxed out on 6 targets in week 2. Doesn't have a touchdown. His yards per catch aren't great. 6.5, 8.6, 1.5 in week 3, 6.75 in week 4. But we see this with tight ends who aren't named Sam Laporta. It takes a minute to get involved in an offense. Gabe Davis has still been a little bit productive. I mean, were you drafting Dalton Kincaid thinking he was going to be like a plug and play immediately? Or did you kind of see this coming where it's he's going to muddle around that tight end 24 to tight end 15 to 24 and not really be startable in most formats?
I wasn't drafting Kincaid to fill either of those roles because I really wasn't drafting Dalton Kincaid. Anything past Zay Flowers, past that 110, I'm fine pushing it back to the 206 and getting another second. So I did miss out on a lot of Kincaid. I missed out on a lot of Kendra Miller. Unfortunately, I missed out on a lot of Devin A. Chain. It happens.
It does. What can you do? I have a little bit of Kincaid, but his price got a little too much for me. I love the talent, but look where we're at with Kyle Pitts right now. And not to say that Pitts isn't going to pan out eventually. He will, but I'm not feeling great about where I was drafting Kyle Pitts. So made me a little bit cautious on Dalton Kincaid, but I was able to get Laporta in like the third round. So like that was a nice consolation for me.
Of course.
So, yep. All right, guys. Oh, no, go ahead. If you
check your phone. Check your phone. I got a dinner date that I got to go to, and we're closing up on our final time in 45 minutes. Take it, buddy.
That's why I'm ending it out here. All right, so Matt has a date. Good luck. Show her the show.
Thanks.
Show her the show. Get her.
That'll
look at
seal the deal.
I'm famous, right? Like next stop reality TV for Mr. Chester here. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the show where we got to ramble about these rookies who we've been so excited to see what they were going to do. And now heading into week 5, we got to talk about it a little bit. Make sure you like this video if you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe to the Razzball channel so you don't miss an episode of Dynasty Diehards and all our other fantastic content that we've got out there. Matt, do you have any parting words? Anything you want to say to your date when she's at the end of this video and she's like, my God, you guys are just absolutely incredible?
There's nothing more to say. Just let the work speak for itself. But Nate, I am going to have my people to get in touch with your people to see if we can do a first round startup expose / postmortem and see where we feel about all of these first round Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrows, and see how the QB landscape is going to be looking in the Dynasty world over the next year or two, and how we think that NFL contracts are gonna fit into that, because I think that the QB landscape is very interesting right now. And that's all I have to say.
It is. Well, look for that on Twitter, guys. Make sure you're following us at FFDyno, DYNO, Diehards, and at Razzball. Again, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you do all the things. Follow us on the socials. Say hello. Send us your trade questions. We'll see you next week.